Three, two, one.
Hello, welcome back to the Godfo Universe podcast. I'm your co-host and co-creator of the Godfo Universe, Josh Adams. I'm here with Dan Evans, also co-creator and co-host of the Godfo Universe, all things whatsoever included in that.
Co-creator or
how you doing,
co-creator?
Dan? Man, how's your week been?
Oh man, I'm tired. I cleaned up my entire garage today, and whatever. I killed so many spiders, and like I've been reading to my oldest like chapter books because she's like 3 and super smart. So take that, everybody else with kids. So we did Charlotte's Web, and then we had James and the Giant Peach, and then like in Fantastic Mr. Fox and Alice in Wonderland, and like all these like British guys be writing like how friendly spiders are, and it's like you've never lived in like the south of North America, because it's always like, oh, it's just a harmless spider, leave it alone. It's like, dude, every spider here will kill you. Like I killed like 3 different
Man, I'm
species.
so scared of spiders.
I killed like 3 different species of spiders that could easily kill me, like with a bite.
I'm so terrified of them. I always have been, and like I know you probably did too. I saw Arachnophobia as a kid, and that movie wrecked me, man.
Yeah, I can't get in a sleeping bag now.
I'm terrified of spiders
because of that.
Freaking hate a spider.
Oh
yeah.
I was afraid of them at some point. So, but take this, U.S. government, in case you go like 84 on me. Like I got over it just by getting angry. Because you can't have a secret like Wilson with the rats, or they'll use them against you.
He's like, I did the same thing with the Nazis.
Well, you know, like I reached a point where I was like, I'm just mad. I'm just gonna kill every single one I see. I'm kind of like the Punisher with drug dealers now.
How dare you for existing with your 8 legs?
Yeah, now I just get mad.
All right, so speaking of things that make us mad, I'm excited about our topic tonight. We've been kind of throwing this idea around for a few weeks now. We're finally getting around to doing it. Discussion about, and typically I know we talk about comics a lot, but we're nerds of all shapes, size, and all genre of nerd. So like movies
jackasses
and
of all
films
trades.
are a big thing of us. And
I'm a jackass of all trades.
So what we want to talk about is
master of bait.
Physical, practical special effects versus CGI. Yeah. And you know, Dan, you and I both kind of grew up, like we're old enough that we grew up with we grew up with pre-CGI movies, like, and even in the early 90s, you would still rent or watch on TV a lot of those movies from far back as like the 50s and 60s. Like I grew up watching all the old Godzilla movies.
Little
I
Rascals.
grew up watching the old
Red Skeleton.
Yep. I used to watch the old Sinbad movies with the stop motion animation, Clash of the Titans, stuff like that. So like we grew up, we watched a transition from like the earliest practical effect stuff with lots of claymation and stop motion animation stuff into the 80s being that golden age practical effects, when you had people that just and we'll get into some of those guys, Stan Winston and Rob Bottin that worked on The Thing,
Harryhausen,
Tom Savini, guys that just kind of reinvented practical effects in a way that was to this day. There are some of those older movies that to this day nothing can touch.
Yeah.
And you know, we watch CGI start gently making its way into films and then gradually taking over practical effects.
And somehow got
so
worse.
That's the crazy thing is somehow it went from, it's like it crossed a barrier and then started a downward spiral again. And we'll talk about why. I'm sure we got some ideas about, you know, why that downward trend.
Yeah.
But what are some movies that like you go to for if you're thinking about practical effects? What are some of the big ones that stand out to you, like from older films that didn't have a stitch of CGI in them, or if they did, it was very minimal? Like, what are some of those practical effect films that blow your mind still to this day? The effects are so good.
The first, without speaking subjectively, because we can get into that, but you can't talk this topic without The Thing.
Oh yeah, hands down.
So I think that's
And
the best place
that's
to
whether
start.
you're
That's
a
the pinnacle.
horror fan or not.
To me, that's probably the pinnacle of all physical special effects. I think that's where
Certainly when it comes to monster type effects and things, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of things that movie does well. It does animatronic stuff. It does special effects makeup. It does matte paintings. Like it blends matte paintings in like gorgeously to like it's seamlessly blends those things in. It even does actually have a stop motion sequence at the end, and that's the only scene in the movie that actually is a little bit dated.
Yeah.
But 90% of the effects in that movie
because it's an alien force.
Yeah, because it's such a strange creature already. Yeah, I would agree. And like that one, it starts off very subtle and then gradually grows to a point where it's like, holy crap!
Yeah,
like it's so realistically done. I think another standout for me, and it's actually two that kind of almost have to go together because they came out very close to the same time, same director, a lot of the same people worked on it. The original Alien, and
insane.
Blade Runner.
Blade Runner the original Alien only had one wonky part, and it's like 2 seconds, and it's when the alien goes like this and grabs somebody. It's like in the air vent or whatever, and it looks like someone's hands are in gloves doing it. Yeah, that's the tiniest little nick against it.
But I mean, it's such a gorgeous movie, though. Like the sets,
Geiger,
and that's where you look at movies like the original Alien, The Thing, Blade Runner. There's something about a real set that's actually grimy, actually gritty, that it's not on a soundstage somewhere with a blue screen behind it and added in later. There's something so dynamic about having actual models. Even if you have to do camera tricks, like they do some camera tricks to make the derelict spaceship look so big, or like the pilot of that ship looked so giant.
Yeah.
But they actually did build a gigantic body in a chair, and the dudes walked on it. Like, there's something to be said about a film that all of those effects are in camera, happening right in front of your eyes, and that I don't think you can hardly replace that.
No, I mean Metropolis still looks awesome.
Yep.
Every time I watch that movie, I'm like, how did a human being make this? It's the same with
especially
Blade
then.
Runner. Yeah, especially then. But Blade Runner is, that's another pinnacle. I think The Thing really just like hit it, and Blade Runner to me is like in a league of its own. Like I'm trying to avoid making a music comparison, but it's like Blade Runner is like the Zeppelin 4 or whatever. That's where it is. Or it's like Queen's Night at the Opera. Like someone else may have established like that genre, but you're not gonna touch it. Blade Runner, not to interrupt, man, but like to go with it, like
no, go for it.
A problem, and we'll get to it with CGI, and maybe The Matrix was the last to do it. I think, especially futuristic movies like Blade Runner, Alien, and The Matrix stuff like people call them dystopian, but they're the only future movies that look like humans are still involved and look like working class people still exist.
Right.
It's kind of grimy. It's kind of dark.
Yeah, and I think that part of that aesthetic and part of what works And I know you brought up The Matrix, and I love those movies as well, especially the original.
Yeah, the first one's
And
fantastic.
of course, that movie definitely did use CGI, but it used CGI only as a support to very inventive camera work that didn't exist before that movie. Incredible sets, incredible costumes. There are a lot of miniatures. There's a lot of matte paintings and stuff like that's not. There's a lot of stuff in that movie that people now would look at it and think was CGI that was not.
Well, and
There's,
it has the theme. Like the first time I saw it, I had no idea what was going on. And the best thing,
yeah,
and the reason they did it so well is they, to go off the topic we talk about, they ripped off anime, and they openly ripped off anime, and that was the way to do it. It was like a live action anime, one of the only good ones ever, and
yeah,
but it had that tone from the start that nothing felt real. So when the CGI, even it's not trying to be perfect, and that's what made it work. It's like nothing's real. It's not supposed to look
right.
real. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like there's certain milestones, effects wise. The Matrix, I agree that first Matrix film is one of them. Not terribly far before the Matrix, we had the first Jurassic Park,
which was a mix of the two. Terminator 2.
Yeah, yeah. I think that the best possible marriage is when you have that. As much as you can build, you build practically, and then you supplement that with the CGI, and you hide the CGI in shadows, or you hide it in nighttime and rain, and it just adds to and props up a really good, well-designed physical set, physical props. They built a gigantic T-Rex, and it broke down a lot, and they had a lot, and you hear about like the guy operating the head would get stuck inside the head for like half an hour before they could dry it out enough to open the mouth. So I mean, but it was kind of the Wild West of special effects in some ways.
Well, that's how
like,
all good art is,
lost.
though. It's usually the Wild West.
Yeah. And there are still people out that are doing that. I mean, if you look at a Guillermo del Toro movie, his movies do have a lot of CGI, but they also have a lot of practical effects. And he builds incredible sets and incredible costumes, and as much, like for example, Hellboy 2 in particular.
Yeah,
that big troll character that has the metal hand that shoots out on a chain and all.
It looks great.
It looks incredible. You would swear that was CGI, and it's practical.
I forgot his name. Any other time I could tell you, but the demon dog from the first one, that's like a reptile.
Yeah,
man, it looks great. No, and there are some things, but no one can really do this right. Like even still, then they were still using the bad practical effect of whenever he gets hit, they go flying, but it's always slow. Like nothing moves like that slow in the air like that.
Yeah, they still use the cables and stuff like that.
The cables can be pretty bad.
Wire work.
Going back to the Matrix, the Matrix made wire work look amazing and fast.
Yeah,
at least the first one.
Well,
did.
they leaned into that wuxia Chinese kung fu, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon type stuff, and it worked really well.
Did a lot of CGI too. Like I think it's the Matrix 2 where Trinity is entering that facility at the beginning, and that first part looks great when she's going in there. But again, like that, they did like fisheye kind of zoom lens and stuff. It's not supposed to be real.
Right.
Another one is Dark City.
Oh man, that movie looks phenomenal.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a drop of CGI in it. Is there? I can't tell.
There's very, very little, and most of it is just to create an aura of energy or something there at the end. I think there might be a little bit of CGI for the space when you realize that the city's a ship and all, but like minimal, very minimal, and that's what works best. And like, to be honest, if you look at even some of the more modern Marvel movies before the current phase, like if you watch the first Guardians of the Galaxy,
Iron Man,
the first Iron Man, the first Guardians of the Galaxy, some of those movies still look so good because they built real sets.
Yeah.
They built everything they could build.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was makeup that could be makeup. Everything was a prosthetic or an animatronic that could be.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they reach the area where I can't make this, then they use CGI.
Even the first Thor, which is crazy.
Oh, yeah.
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 Because by the time we get to Love and Thunder or whatever, or not even that, Ragnarok, it's all CGI.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all CG. And then, like, to go back to Del Toro and, like, the Hellboy stuff, they would have an entire suit full of animatronics and then use CGI to make the eyelids move. You know, they'd have elements of CGI on top of something that already looked very convincing, and, you know, it sells it.
Well, like I said, it's just Hellboy, that demon, don't forget, like Slanesh or whatever it's called. I know it's not that. But when they're fighting in the subway...
Is it Samael?
Samael,
like
yeah.
that?
The way it moves, basically in the subway, and like it's got, you can tell it doesn't move like a real animal. Like it doesn't have small structural bones or muscles that can contort, and its eyes are kind of bulgy and just kind of don't move. But it works. I mean, and my thing is, when I watch a movie, I'm the same way with video games that I am with movies. Like I don't expect things to look real. And maybe that's a generational
I just want them to look cool.
Yeah, look cool. I mean, Jason and the Argonauts, like when he's fighting the claymation skeleton, it looks cool. And
yeah, it still looks cool. It doesn't look real, but it looks dope.
Yeah, and like I remember, like, was it American Werewolf in Paris? Is that the one where like the guy's haunted by his dead friend that he killed or whatever?
All right, yeah. So there's American Werewolf in London.
Yeah,
that's the one you're thinking. That's the original.
That one,
and it's got
terrified me as a kid. Yeah, that one terrified me as a kid.
It's to this day probably still the best transformation scene ever filmed.
I'll never forget, to the day I died, they're in the theater and his friend turns and like half his head is like missing and he's just talking to him, and I was like, good. It looked better than Two-Face.
The gore effects
than the Dark Knight
were insane. Yeah, the gore effects were insane. But that's a really good example though, because in the early 2000s they made the sequel, was the one the American Werewolf in Paris, and that has some of the ugliest CGI that has ever been in a movie.
That's where it's the girl, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I remember that one. That one sucked.
It's the worst CGI ever, and I think that's where you can really start seeing those early 2000 movies. Men in Black had decent CGI.
Well, yeah, it's a comedy too. Yeah.
Yeah, and they could get away with it looking a little goofy. You know, you had movies that used it well, but then, you know, to me, the Star Wars prequels have some awful CGI.
Well, they have both,
and like
that's what's interesting.
Yeah, there's moments that are good and moments that are not. And the thing is, organics just don't look right when you go full CGI, especially people. And that's why, like, the worst offender, and it's still one of the ugliest scenes I've ever seen in a movie, is in the second Matrix when he fights the multiple agent Smiths.
Yeah.
It looks like a cutscene from a PS1 game, and the people look so fake.
Yeah.
And it's so clearly not really there, and it just takes you totally out of it.
Yeah, like I said, like the first, I think the entrance of Trinity of that movie looked great, and then the rest of it looks so bad.
Well, everything that's practical looks great. The fight scenes on top of the 18-wheelers, the chase with all the bikes, all that stuff, everything with that looks fantastic. You know, everything that they do in that second movie that's practical looks great. It's only bad when they start overusing CGI. And if you go back and watch that movie, I would say it got judged so harshly, but I would say if you go back and watch that movie again, 75% of that movie is actually almost as good as the first one.
Yeah, well, I don't think plot-wise it is, or mood-wise.
Visually,
yeah,
effects-wise.
Yeah. But yeah, the rest of it, I'm trying.
And I think they fixed a lot of those problems in the third one. The third one, I know people hate it, but the third one visually is incredible.
Well, a surprising one that I think works because of the the setting was Chronicles of Riddick.
Mm-hmm.
Like some of that stuff looks fantastic in that movie.
Yeah, it looks so good.
Yeah, and
It looks so
it had
good.
no business looking that good.
It comes down to people knowing how to light things. But see, there again, they use a lot of actual costumes and actual sets.
Well,
like there is CGI in it, but
yeah, obviously, yeah.
It's used for the CGI is used to make planets. It's used to make like the fire and crazy lighting effects and stuff on the planet when it's like half ice, half cold, half burning, and all that. They don't try to make people with it.
Yeah, that's
they
the
don't
thing.
try to.
Well, and let's talk into that just briefly before we go bring it back to comics, because of course we have to bring up Snyderverse because they still can't make it. They still can't make it look as good as his. But there's always the stupid debate of like the uncanny valley. They're like, oh, what skinwalkers or demons? Like why the uncanny valley? It's there to like things that looked human that aren't quite human. And it's like, first of all, the two sides of that, if you want to take an evolutionary side of it, strictly evolutionary, not even like biological, it's like if you believe in evolution, then you'd be like, yeah, there were different things that weren't Homo sapiens, that were like, Neanderthal or whatever, that were humanoid but weren't human, if you think that, And the other one is like biologically, the uncanny valley kind of tells you if someone is sick or someone's wounded. You see what I'm saying? I don't think there were skinwalkers that were human but not quite, and all that kind of stuff. I don't either. But the uncanny valley is a cool study, and most people. That said,
Mark Zuckerberg is really weird looking.
Why do we keep getting actresses with far set eyes? Like I'm not trying to be the Snow White girl. Like, and it's not that she's ugly. It's just like she's not pretty enough.
Got chameleon eyes.
I'm not ripping. I shouldn't rip her. She looks better than me as a person, but. Anyway, we got the Little Mermaid. Now we got her.
Most people do, Dan.
Yeah, I know, right?
Dan's got the uncanny valley all over him.
I've got good hair, and that's about it. It just looks terrible right now. But I'd love to do a study with you, or like a video on the uncanny valley. Like we could do like a 2-hour talk on that, especially as an artist, because it seems like so many artists just don't understand it. And I think that's part of the thing here with CGI is like, if we talk about like lighting, if you don't have the basic understanding of effects and art, you can't add special things on it. AI still can't get stuff right.
I think that the biggest hurdle with CGI and really anything, and the reason why practical effects work better for this than CGI is when it comes to humans and human faces, being able to recreate the texture of skin,
the millions of muscles movements that were required.
Yeah. It's the best CGI people are they look better when when it's as dark as possible and you can obscure it some.
Yeah.
Because like it's really hard to reproduce. So what you end up with is either a face that has like that waxy, almost mannequin-like look to it, or you get something that they try to go hyper realistic and hyper detailed, and you have pores and hair and all this stuff that's just weird. Too much.
Yeah.
It's too much. And it's somewhere in the middle there. Whereas if you got a really good artist, they can recreate a texture of skin with silicone and the right amount, and they can paint it to have the right skin tones, and then light it where actual light is creating actual shadows, and it just looks more real than something that is produced in a
was it Barry Lyndon by Kubrick, where every scene looks like a painting. And he kills, but like, and I forget, it's a really famous sculpture. I don't know if it was Da Vinci or Michelangelo, but it's like, people wonder, like, it's like a guy, like, and it's a whole body sculpture, looks great, but he even has like the pinky up slightly just to get like that one muscle that activates when you do that. And it's just that kind of crazy detail you would never get from anything. But I don't know, man. The human body is a wonder. I'm not going to go off on that topic, but like even the most advanced face capture, it can't get like I would guess like 90% of how a face moves and shapes. Because they like, how do video games look so awful? Like, especially like, like modern game female protagonist, and like they just look terrible. Like, and people talk like they can't capture faces well.
The best thing that they can do is dial that stuff back. Mm-hmm. You can make some incredibly realistic environments. We've perfected water and trees and the sunlight. Like
Legend of Zelda Wind Waker.
We can create environment simulations that look real. They've gotten pretty good with hair moving and looking real. But like I don't understand why anybody would try to make a sci-fi movie about aliens or anything like that and not do practical makeup and then just add a little bit of a real enhance it with CG.
The best thing Independence Day did with that was making them exosuits because they move kind of blocky in the tentacles. But when you crack it open, it's dead. Like, that's a great plot workaround. It's dead, so it doesn't have to move.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah. And that movie still looks fantastic. Mm-hmm. But there again, they used a lot of miniatures for the ships. They did a lot of really cool camera tricks to make that stuff look so great. I don't care for the movie that much, but if you go back and watch Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, oh my gosh,
it looks so good, yeah.
I don't love the movie itself and that take on the character, but the camera tricks and illusions and stuff that he created in camera on that movie are still kind of untouchable.
And
you would swear it was CG.
I am a sucker for painted horizons. When they're good, like this what surprised me. I rewatched Coneheads, and it's the scene where he's narfling the Garflock or whatever, and they're doing a view of like the arena from the very top, and it's a painting, and it looks fantastic. But I mean, it's a painting, but like I said, like to me, that kind of stuff's way better. Like I love seeing that stuff. Like the Never Ending Story is one of my favorite movies ever because of that.
Yeah, I love a well incorporated matte painting. Mm-mm. That's why I love The Empire Strikes Back, man. God, it's got some great matte paintings. With that,
like we were talking about lighting, Yoda looks better on Dagobah than he does in the Republican Senate or whatever, the Jedi Council, because of the light.
Because he was real. Well, he was real. You can light it like a real thing.
In Phantom Menace, he was a puppet still, originally.
Yeah.
But the lighting is so bright and the shadows are so strange that you can tell that he's bebopping like a puppet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People didn't know how to light him.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't know how to light it.
To get back to comics, whatever you want to say about them, Zack Snyder's Justice League all of his runs, the Snyderverse, look fantastic.
All of his movies do.
Yeah, but I'm saying
Watchmen is gorgeous. But his Justice League, Snyder Cut's Justice League. I know so many people love to hate on him, and I don't get it. But like that Flash scene where he saves all those people, it's the best Flash scene I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. Nothing will ever top that. And like his version, the way he showed the Speed Force with such a drastically smaller budget and a lot less time.
Well, the way he saved, I forgot his name, and I got a figure of him right there. The bad guy that's not Darkseid, Steppenwolf. Yeah, he saved that design big time. Yeah, by just creating that armor, the living armor, and it's like, okay, it's supposed to look alien, and it doesn't look off because. Yeah. Well, and if we really wanted to go into that rabbit hole, the opening sequence of Man of Steel is the best sci-fi movie I've ever seen. And there's a lot of CGI in there. Most fantastic. Of Planet Krypton is CGI. But he's not trying to make people. Mm-hmm. He's making crazy looking
dragonfly,
Well,
like
and they avoid
monster
a lot of
dragons,
the face of those creatures too, like and how that kind of stuff. Yeah.
and the lighting
Mm-hmm.
when it shows those things coming in and the sun behind them, that is straight out of Apocalypse Now.
Yep.
I mean, it's gorgeous, gorgeous, but it all comes down to, do you understand lighting, and can you make it look real? And that's the same thing we've talked about 1,000 times in the comic books. There's so much of why this new art looks so bad is on a technical side, like the sketching, the penciling, the inking is probably fine, but then somebody goes in there to color it that does not understand lighting at all, doesn't understand how shadows work at all, or how light sources work at all,
Yeah.
and you get this thing that just doesn't look convincing at all.
And I'm
You
not
look at
trying
old
to.
comics; they don't look real.
Yeah,
They're not
they look like
photoreal unless
comics.
Alex Ross did it,
Yeah.
but they're believable. But you buy it. You're in it.
Yeah.
It looks great because it's not trying to be something more than it is.
Well, and I'm not trying to go esoteric with it or scientific, but like light, I don't want to chase this rabbit hole, but like, I'm an artist. I'm not a physicist. Light
You're a
is
chartist.
yeah, light is a tricky thing because it's a particle and a wave, and it is so complex, and the human eye observing it is so complex. It's a miracle of miracles that you can replicate it at all to look good.
Right.
And that's what I mean. That's what I stress. Like that's a big passion of mine. Like I'm not a physical artist. Like you can't draw. Like I write stuff, but artists have to understand it, man. And it hurts my heart so much when I see, especially modern comics, that are so trash with it. It's like, dude, you have to understand. It's like we have a million guitar players now that are playing out of tune. That's what I think when I see this.
I want to look at that for a minute, and I know you've seen it, but I'm gonna text you that most recent color practice I did with Kolga. If you'll pull it up for us to talk about.
Sure.
I just sent it to you.
But what started for everybody there? What started this conversation was I rediscovered an '80s horror movie called Razorback. But like a giant mutated pig, and it looks fantastic. At least the pig does. It's got like those '80s shadows and like smoke machines and stuff, and it just looks amazing.
Well, and we talked about The Thing, but you and I have discussed how like The Thing, when they did that prequel of it,
yeah, it looked terrible.
Recently, and that team had made amazing practical effects.
Yeah.
Had whole shots that they had done with these incredible practical effects that would genuinely have lived up to the John Carpenter version.
Mm-hmm.
And then the studio came in and burned all that down and said, CGI it.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks so fake.
It was such a
How does a movie that came out of like 10 years ago look more fake than a movie that came out like 40 years ago?
Well, how does the Flash movie look so trash? And
Um,
I'll be honest, man. That's one reason I love Black Adam. It's got they tried to use VXF or whatever it is.
Yep.
More so than CGI, and whatever you want to say about that movie, it looks great.
Yeah.
Like it looks awesome, and the intro.
It looks in keeping with the Snyder stuff.
Yeah, and
it looks like it exists in the same universe.
The intro of Black Adam is one of the best comic book intros ever. Like because it's The Rock, he's massive, he's huge, and then he just like blows up that whole thing of soldiers. Okay, so I got your Kolga sketch here.
Yeah.
And this is something I assume you did while you were like watching TV or something, because that's what you do.
I did.
It looks great.
All right, so if you look at it, one of the things you'll notice about, and this is the reason why I did a color test in the first place before we start working on Kolga, is trying to get her skin tone the way I wanted it. But if you look at that, there's green in those shadows.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's some green, there's some blue in those shadows. As it edges towards the edge of that shadow, there's a little bit of an orange reddish tint to it. It gets warmer at the edge of the shadow before it kind of transitions into her natural skin tone. and you wouldn't think that putting green and blue and all that stuff would look weird on a face, but when you layer it in, you realize that like even if you just look at my hand,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot more colors in there in that with the way the shadows hit it. There's green, there's blue, there's red, there's all those different colors in your hand. And if you just put a flat color on something, or if you put this very unrealistic gradient over it, it's not gonna be convincing.
Yeah, this looks like a light source is actually there somewhere. You know?
Yeah, and I think that that's something that when you look at these older practical effects and makeup effects, those artists would go in and they didn't just make a model or make a silicone application, glue it on. They glue it on and then they paint it.
Mm-hmm.
And they give it the different tones. They give it the red spots and give it some blue around the edge. And they by the time they're done airbrushing all those parts, it looks like convincingly like real skin.
Yeah.
And if it's made out of the right stuff, it will move like real skin. And it's way more convincing than a CGI model will ever be.
And texture, like hair and stuff like that.
Yeah. They go in and they individually drop every single hair to make that head look like a real head.
Well, and another thing that's always bothered me, because they even had it on like that new Wednesday show. Whenever they do monsters, they have them move in such weird, unnatural ways, and something they've never been able to do is like snarling. Because there's like I said,
talking about with CG.
Yeah, it's like it's better to have, like, that's why I was comparing Razorback and like stuff like that. It's better to have a creature in the dark that kind of moves a little bit stiff than too fluid. Mm-hmm. It's better to be a little stiff than too fluid, but that's what they do so much with CGI is like it just goes, it's so overdone. It's like, man, no person, it's over. It's like trying to overcompensate. I didn't care for the movie Ex Machina, but the smart thing to do, like, if we're going to cast a believable AI robot, let's cast it as a person. And that was great. Mm-hmm. They had her do it, and that whoever did the effects for that movie was brilliant. Where she's like, mm-hmm. her insides are robotic and half her head is. Like I said, I don't care for that movie, but it looks fantastic.
Yeah, it was visually, it works really well.
Yeah.
And I think that I go back to Del Toro so much because he's one of the best at actually marrying the two.
Mm-hmm.
Pacific Rim looks so much better than any of the sci-fi big movies that have come out in the past 10 years. You can go back and look at Pacific Rim, and all of those effects look great. But those big Jaeger mm-hmm. right, like robots and stuff, where are they fighting? At night in the ocean where it's raining.
Lots of stuff are moving. It's all
Or there's a lot of particles and all that stuff in the air. Or put them in that city where he has the big fight in the city and everything's like neon lighting mm-hmm. and stuff like that. And you can sell the CGI better because mm-hmm. you can hide it a little bit.
The light diffusion does a lot. Because mm-hmm. the eye gets confused and it kind of just accepts it all as one instead of looking mm-hmm. for different things. Yeah, that's the thing, man. Like tie it back into comics. It's just what the main thing I've noticed that you said, like, yeah, it's like it's either one skin tone or one color or a gradient. It's not a natural mix of things, and color is so important mm-hmm. for all of that. The Gamork, the Wolf from Neverending Story, because it looks uncanny, is what makes it so terrifying. But again, not just because I'm a kid, because I rewatch it, and that scene where he's talking to Atreyu in the courtyard at the end or whatever, it's so terrifying because it has these eyes like that. They don't really move, and it has like a mouth. Yeah. First of all, it's always weird to see like a wolf mouth, but part of what makes it creepy, I know I'm being so pedantic here, but like its lips don't move like they would if they were CGI. It's a little stiff, but it moves more naturally, and like, I don't know, I'll pull it up for anybody who for some reason hasn't seen the Neverending Story.
Yeah, he still looks incredible.
He's
I'm looking
terrifying.
at like gifs of him.
He's
Well, and the
absolutely.
eyes
Oh,
squint
jeez, yeah,
and they squint
that's
and
already
then
scaring.
open up wide again.
That's already
Yeah,
scaring me.
it's awesome. They have that green glow to them. Well, I'll tell you the other thing in that movie that I was scared of is this daggum sphinxes
And the
that
turtles,
he has.
or and the turtle, not turtles. Yeah,
I like the turtle, but the
he
sphinx
scared me
scared me,
though.
man.
Yeah, the sphinxes,
I
that
oh,
disembodied
the eyes
voice.
would just kind of slowly start to open and then zap the dude.
Yep. And
Ugh. I
the
gotta go watch that now.
the disembodied voice, like this sense of greatness,
Yeah.
and literally all that is it's just a statue. It shouldn't be terrifying, but when you do the mood and you do the setting that way, here I'll just have to pull it up here. So here's Gamork. Everybody's gonna see the magic cards that I'm searching. That's fine, but yeah, like that wolf is terrifying to this day.
Yeah.
The,
Yeah, he's scary.
the texture, there's something about, oh, I found a gif. Yeah, watch him move. They do a really good
Yeah.
job.
And like again, the eyes they squint and then they open
Yeah.
wide, and it's so good.
They're so predatory. Like they just, because dog eyes don't look like that. That's what's so weird. It's almost like he has cat eyes.
And it's just it. But there again, they have him. They built this really convincing cave with all the stuff hanging down, and he's kind of out in the shadows. Just that snout that's sticking out, and they can sell it because they can build the whole scene around it and light it just right to make you believe it.
Yeah, and it's
Labyrinth was another great
good.
one that did that. Had incredible special effects, practical effects, and they knew how to film those things because they were actually there, and it just makes a difference.
And I'm gonna go back for just a second and get rid of it. Going back to Gamork, the unnatural uncanniness of it is what sold the terrible part of it. Like this is not a dog. Right. You know what I mean? This is something.
Yeah, it's clearly not.
This is something moving a dog. You know. Yeah, let me pull up some how do you spell labyrinth? Labyrinth film.
Labyrinth.
Well, I ended up spelling labyrinth correctly, but spelled film Film. Film. Yeah. I mean, there's parts of it like Huckle, is that his name? Hubble. Her little guide. He's a little much of a puppet, kind of off, but they're Muppets, so that's different. Muppets are supposed to be a little campy, you know. But yeah, it looks fantastic, especially when they get into and you see like big shots of the labyrinth itself. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I'm just a huge sucker for those kind of painting things. I think they look great. They inspire me, and they make me know that I'm watching a movie, and I want that escapism. I want to know that I'm watching a movie or playing a video game. I don't want it trying to convince me it's like, I know people liked it, but like when I saw like The Last of Us, like the video game, I didn't want to play it because of the way it looked. Like I don't dig this.
So that's probably one of my favorite games, but I get where you're coming from. Though.
Well, Pan's Labyrinth.
Yeah, I definitely.
Because that came up. Pan's Labyrinth did a super great job with CGI and practical.
There again, Del Toro.
Yeah. And
see, he was originally supposed to do the Hobbit movies.
Oh, that'd have been awesome.
That would have been so much better than what we got.
Well, if they just stayed out of his way, because the only reason the Hobbit movies were bad is because they wouldn't let Peter Jackson do what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, and he was supposed to do something
Studio
else
interference.
Too. He was supposed to do something else too, and it just got dropped. It was like a cool movie.
He was going to do Justice League Dark.
That'd have been awesome. Oh, the scene at the beginning of Labyrinth when you first see like the goblins, when it just cold cuts to them out of nowhere.
Yeah,
dude, that terrified me as a kid. Oh my goodness, and it's still.
Is she saying the words? She's gonna say it. Is she gonna say it?
It still scares me. Like when I watch it, man, I'm like, oh, I forgot about that. Like it's terrifying. It just, bam, cuts to him out of nowhere because your brain is so used to seeing people, and it just cuts to these things, and you're like, oh. Yeah. Lord of the Rings was a good one because a lot of the stuff that they used for Gollum was very, 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 very new. And some of it hasn't aged well. I think most of it has. but some of it, particularly with Gollum, was a little shoddy.
But see, he was at his best in Fellowship of the Ring
Yeah.
when you just saw that little
Yep.
bit of him, and he was in the dark, and
Yeah.
he just had that kind of little bit of shine in his eyes. That's when he was the most creepy and the most effective. Once he's out in the broad daylight,
Mm-hmm.
the
And
best shots of him in Two Towers are when they've been captured by all the humans, and they're in
Yep.
there, and you see him having the argument with himself in the water.
Yeah.
It's dark, and there's like a bluish filter on it from the water reflection and all that stuff. He looks great
yeah.
in that lighting. Then you put him in daylight, it's you realize, oh, that doesn't look like real skin, and that's not how actual muscles and
Mhm.
bones move, and like that doesn't look like real cloth around it, like, and then it's
Yeah. When he
takes you
when he
right out.
fights Sam, when they kind of roll and
Mhm.
tumble, he's very slow. It's like no, like
Mhm.
that's not how you move whenever gravity hits you.
Mhm.
Yeah, stuff like that. But there's so much. I'm trying to think of. There's so much good stuff. And I mean, the Balrog doesn't look shoddy because it's like a demon, like this fire thing.
Yeah.
It's a little
Yeah.
much, but there's so many good practical effects in that movie. And I
I
don't
mean, but look how many extras they had. Look how many
Yeah.
costumes and makeup and actual, like, when they had orcs, they had hundreds of people
Dude,
dressed like
the
orcs. Like,
the orcs look great, and that's what in the Urukai, like the Urukai, are just basically painted
oh, dude,
painted
they're
dudes.
so dope looking.
There are some like
Yeah, they're so dope.
the one orc when they're arguing over if they can eat Merry and Pippin, the one with the "Rah" voice looks
What the
so.
hell?
There's that one, but the one that's like he looks so great, and I
Oh,
can't
yeah.
tell if that's a combination of CGI and practical, but he looked because it's so narrow and weird. Like I don't know, like man, that's really good. Whoever designed that killed it.
Yeah, there's some really incredible artistry in that film.
Yeah.
And I miss movies that look like that and feel like that. And honestly, the last one I saw that did was Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, I was gonna say Alita.
Alita was great too.
Yeah.
Alita did a wonderful job. But there again, lots of practical in with the CGI.
Yeah.
And that's the only real way to do it, I think, unless you're going to have a completely CGI film.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to try to have live action, you got to build as much as you can. And I know studios love CGI because it's cheaper
Mm-hmm.
and
just
it's
doesn't look
faster. It just doesn't look good.
Well,
I think audiences are getting tired of it.
Well, what's crazy with something like Blade Runner, which I might be wrong, I don't think there's any CGI in it, or I don't think they had the idea of it back then.
No, it was not a thing yet.
Because that's an old movie. It's so great. But it's almost a flex how good it is because, it milked the darkness for all it was worth. Those scenes in the neon that define it great.
And the rain.
Yeah, but
the darkness, the rain.
But
all
what
that,
people
smoke,
go over or forget about is stuff like the inside stuff. That's so hard to do. But like the fight scene with the girl when they're in like the toy maker's place, that set looks fantastic. That whole building looks amazing. It's like that looks like what every anime wants to look like. That's what's so crazy.
But see, and there again, it all comes down to texture.
Yeah.
Those movies, the Star Wars: A New Hope, the original Alien, Blade Runner, those movies have texture that makes those places look lived in. And the only director working right now in sci-fi that understands that and does it well is the dude that did District 9.
The only thing
Blomkamp.
I'm glad you mentioned him because I both love and hate that movie for what it did to sci-fi. Because the movies that rip it off look awful. Like, I am so tired of dusty sci-fi movies. Like,
that's not his fault, though.
I know, but I'm saying it's the same.
I
Like,
get you,
some
but-
people hate Nirvana for creating, like, Nickelback.
Yeah, that's fair. But even if he's not the best storyteller, that movie had a good story.
Yeah,
But some
District
of his
9's
others have
good.
not had the best stories. But from a visual standpoint, he's the only one working in science fiction right now that understands that gritty, textured, lived in
Yeah.
kind of experience. And that's why all of that movie and all of his movies look
Mm-hmm.
phenomenal, even if they don't have a great story. Like, I didn't care for Chappie that much from a
Yeah,
story
I
standpoint,
did.
but it
Yeah.
still looked great. I loved Elysium. A lot of people didn't like Elysium. I actually love Elysium, but the visuals in his movies are so good because he understands texture and
I
because it's
I
as
agree
much
that
of it
they're
as practical as
good.
possible.
I agree that they're good. I'm just tired of seeing dust.
Dustin.
Why is it's like, dude? Why do you think the future is Somalia? Like,
Well, because that movie is actually set in
I
like
know, but like every
a certain
movie
part of the
after
world,
that,
but
it's like the Dust Bowl 4.0 every movie. But
that don't bother me.
I think they should have got him to maybe shoot like Arrakis for Dune, because we've had this before. I think my problem with the Dune movie, the new one, is I've been to like the painted desert. Like, I've seen that deserts don't have to be like yellow. They
Yeah.
can have bright colors, and they don't have to have the sun all like they can. And like deserts all around the world look different. I don't know. That's the whole thing. I think parts of the new Dune look great. I think he did great with the characters and the clothing, but
Hmm.
I think a lot of the other stuff was very boring. I think he tried though. Like, I think the texture is there, but the colors not so much.
I'm hoping maybe the second one will have a little bit more
Yeah,
because we get into the jihad in the second one
I would have liked
and a lot
a
more with
little
the
more
worms.
Lynch in it. I think it needed like 20 more
Yeah.
Lynch. Yeah,
They probably were trying to purposefully avoid some of that. I would
yeah,
imagine the studio probably wanted to purposefully, but no, I
yeah,
that's a fair assessment.
yeah,
But yeah, I think that at the end of the day, the best thing that movies can do is lose their big budgets
yeah.
and stop making tent poles, stop making big blockbuster franchises, and go back to making smaller movies by passionate filmmakers who have to find a way to build what they're doing and then
Hmm.
use CGI as a tool to enhance what they were able to build and create. I mean, there's people making short films on YouTube that look better than Hollywood blockbusters, and that's ridiculous.
Yeah, they just usually aren't very well written.
No, but and that's the thing is
Yeah.
like if you've got the ability to do it on such a shoestring, then there's
Hmm.
no excuse for a big studio to put out something that looks like The Flash did.
Yeah, and Matt Damon talked about that on some late night show, and no, maybe it was hot. I think it was the Hot Ones, and it was like the most honest answer you'll ever get out of Hollywood. Where he's like the middle budget movie is dead. He's like, you have
Yep.
small indie guys and you have blockbusters, but the middle budget movie where you can actually have good stuff from both ends, like, it's like this not going to happen again. Like, it's just not.
Yeah,
It's
it's
just
gone.
gone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that part of the industry has died, and the industry is the only area where you might find something like that is in horror
Hmm. Don't
because
make it like,
the
guys.
studios still like them to be cheap,
Don't make the Daily Wire make good movies. Like,
right?
yeah.
Right. I never thought Ben Shapiro would be the
There's a joke there, but I can't say it.
about the uncanny valley and
No,
what's
about
actually human.
no. It's I can't say it. It would attract way too much heat. It's hilarious, but I can't say it.
You'll tell. I know you're gonna tell me after
Yeah,
this goes
I
off.
think I've already told you the joke before. But anyway, yeah, don't let like a partisan channel. I know they got like $1 billion probably now, but like, guys, like, we can find ways to fund things. Like, there's ways you can make stuff. We work with Colin Finlayson, he's a wonderful cinematographer and photographer, with basically just a camera and a
Photographer.
light. Photographer, um, with just a camera phone and like a and some lights. We already made a cool looking short film, and like, I can't wait to make more with him, and we're going to, and we're trying to scale up as we go. But you don't need much, man. What I would say is probably avoid CGI and avoid that kind of stuff. Start practical,
As much as possible.
yeah, and just that maybe it's just me, but like we talked about this before, I think, or maybe it was with Colin, but that movie Dante, I think it's called Dante. No, Faust, like from like the 20s.
Oh yeah,
It's
yeah,
got that
yeah.
shot of Satan over the mountaintop. That's a terrifying shot, and all it is like a projection. But it's the way
Well,
it's filmed, the way it looks.
There's another scene that's made some. It's made its, and I don't know what the movie is. An old movie, old black and white movie. But there's a shot from it that has kind of gone viral a while back, and it's been on TikTok and Instagram and stuff, talking about how incredible the effects look then versus now. And like it was, in fact, I think it might have even been a silent film. Like it's that old.
Well, Faust was,
but it's a witch transformation.
Oh, from Haxon.
Maybe so.
I've got that
just
movie.
that.
Yeah.
It was just that there was.
Oh yeah, it's light. It's a different color paint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had painted red paint on the person's face for the witch effects. And when they turned on or off or whatever the red light, and
they removed the filter.
They removed the filter, and it let that color gradually just start to come in, and it still looks incredible.
I think I could be wrong, but I think that's from Haxon. It
may be. I've seen that movie, but it's been a really long time.
I think it is, because the whole movie's about witches. But yeah, I know what you're talking about, and I wish if I could find the clip, I would. But yeah, it's the trick is that it's already there, and there's a filter on it that's hiding that.
Filtering it in with the light.
That's so it's so cool, and it looks way better than CGI.
It's just that idea of going back to giving young people that are creative and have wild ideas the chance to just see if I can build this. Let me figure out if I can make it.
Let me fail.
You know, Rob. Yeah, let me fail and fail forward. Rob Bottin, when he worked on The Thing, he was like 19, 20, something like that. He had never really worked on anything. He just like got the job because of his injury. He's like, oh yeah, I can make that. I can make all that. And he didn't have a clue how he was going to do it. He just sold them on himself. But like, the scene where the head stretches out, like the neck stretches out and pops, all that gooey stuff comes out, and the head sprouts legs and walks around. The first time they filmed it, he had spent like days building this thing and filling it up with all kinds of crazy stuff to make it look and move and splatter and be gross. And John Carpenter looked at it. And like the way it was operated, they had somebody underneath the table running the animatronics to pull the head and make it stretch. And then there were like two guys in there under the table. And on the day they filmed it, they were like, "Look, this took an enormous amount of time to build, so we get one shot at this filming this today." And John Carpenter's like, "Man, there's something missing. I think it needs some fire in the background," because he had just used the flamethrower.
Yeah.
There should be fire in the background. So they brought in, Rob's like, oh yeah, that's fine. They brought in this little one-line propane thing that had fire. And when they opened up the head, the neck, and it pulled open, some of this stuff was flammable, and it blew up with those two guys in the table. And like, it literally turned into this enormous fireball explosion, and the guys were okay, and they rebuilt it from scratch, but left out some of that stuff that was flammable. But I mean, that's the type of Wild West stuff that we need, though, is people's like, I'm just going to throw stuff in there and make something cool and till it works.
Well, it's like I was gonna say, what was I gonna say with that? Oh, the blood coming out of the bed. The first Friday the 13th.
Oh,
where they were like, it's like right as they said action.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
I'm sorry, Nightmare on Elm Street. There was one take. That's all they got, and it was because they actually built the room upside down. People didn't know.
It was a rotating set.
It was like as soon as they went action, that the set cast were like, blood's a liquid, and and water is in there, and there's a bunch of electronics in that room. It's like, as soon as that happened, they were like, oh yeah, water and electricity don't mix. It's like they had built this entire thing to pour like red water through or whatever, like a sugar cane mixture or whatever. And then, like, as soon as they poured it, they were like, oh yeah, there's a ton of electricity in that room. So it erupted like as soon as that scene was over.
But I mean, they got a good shot.
Yeah, it's just like they spent like weeks building that, and then as it's showing, they're like, "Oh yeah,
Oh,
we didn't consider that."
But no, that's what we need. We need creativity again. We need to get rid of the Oscars. We need to get rid of Hollywood. We need to get rid of all the big studios that have a monkey wrench on these franchises. Get rid of the franchises themselves, man.
You don't even have to get rid of them.
Adapting things and rebooting things.
You just have to ignore them. Like that's how it's so easy, you guys. Like this kind of stuff, it's just like teenage girl drama. Just make them feel uncool. Like just go do your own thing.
It's finally starting to happen, though. I mean, look at how people aren't going to see these movies, man.
Except Barbie.
They're failing. Yeah, people have gone to see
Barbie. Here's my problem, though. I'm not going to go off on topic. But, like, people are like, amazed that Barbie, the single most known toy to ever exist, passed $1 billion. Like, guys, it had 70 years of marketing.
And a gorgeous actress that's well liked. How could that have possibly not been successful?
And it's like, guys, you really think I'm surprised that it was successful?
I mean, these Marvel movies lately have all failed. The DC movies have failed, miserably failed, and they're talking about Blue Beetle might do even worse numbers than the Flash did.
I'm not seeing it. I'll see it on TV or on your Vudu.
I don't have an urge to go see any of these movies because they don't look interesting or original at all. And I think that's what you do. You just eventually, if these studios finally lose enough money, maybe eventually they'll come around to realizing they just need to get out of the way and let people make movies again. Just sign the check for the budget and let them make a movie.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I'm glad we had this talk. Like I said, we can go back to comics and stuff. I know, and to update everybody, the book is literally almost done. We're editing it this week.
Yeah, we should have the. We got to figure out a couple of logistical issues about the printing and all, but we should have a pre-order. September, you should be able to pre-order this, I would think.
That's what we're shooting for. We want to take our time.
That's the goal, at least.
Yeah, we mainly want to take our time to make sure it's the best quality for the best price, because that's what we've always fought for. Because you can't talk a big game of punk rock without delivering on it.
Right.
Yeah. So it's here, and it's huge. How many pages would you say it is, Josh?
It's pushing 200.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly how many pages, but it's pushing 200.
It's more than 6 issues long.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
But all right, be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll have a ton of stuff coming in the future. I mean, we've got so much stuff in the background. We're going to do in-world podcast. I'm doing Napoleon 20XX Revelations, which is a part 2 to the Lamentations. We just want this to be a cool, immersive world. We want it to be the opposite of what Hollywood and Marvel and DC are, which are boring.
Yep. Yep. We want to be interesting, and we want to bring y'all in and have everybody have a chance to really explore this world and go as deep into it as you want to. Like, we want it to. We're creating something that has roots, and it has deep lore, and it's gonna go.
It's bigger than
for thousands of years.
It's bigger than anything that's ever happened in comics ever.
Yeah, it's huge,
scope,
and I know that sounds like
depth.
That sounds like a hyperbole, but it's not. So, check it out when it comes out. Check out the rest of the timeline. That's something that we need to do soon. Is just kind of remind everybody of how the timeline works, and kind of we've added to that timeline as well. So that would be a good topic sometime soon. Yeah, even if we just get Lore Master Hans to do a timeline video. That
meet him somewhere.
But thanks for listening. Thanks for all those of you who comment every week. We appreciate that. The back and forth is a lot of fun. And like, subscribe, share, and we'll catch you next time on the Godfather Universe podcast.
Peace.